Welcome to Cardboard Content, where we aim to develop our skills and grow the competitive Commander community. Hey guys, it's me Benedict. Thank you for joining me on this semi-final match. Before we get into the game, I've been spending a decent amount of time on my other social medias. Please check those out. I have a TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, trying to post on those consistently for the time being. Please support me there. Without further ado, here is our game. Starting in the lower right hand corner, we have Glarb being piloted by Daxon with an opening hand of 4. Moving on to James on Malcolm Vial, starting hand of 6. Then we have Rob A playing Jhoira, Aegis Inventor, starting hand of 7. Then we have Logan, Master of Keys, with an opening hand of 7. Daxon starts off with a Hedge Maze into play tapped. He surveils and keeps it on top. James plays Marsh Flats, cracks it for a Badlands, then casts a Ragavan. Passes to Rob. On Rob's turn, he plays Polluted Delta, Volcanic Island, then casts Trickster Mage, then passes to Logan. On Logan's turn, he plays Scrubland into a Soul Ring, and then passes turn to Dax. Dax shocks in an Overgrown Tomb, then casts Fell Warstone, and then passes turn to James. James moves into combat, attacks Logan for 2, and gets a Chain of Vapor off the top of his deck. James casts Mox Diamond, pitches a Otawara, then casts his commander Malcolm, then passes to Rob's turn. Rob plays Arena of Glory, and then casts his commander Jhoira. He passes turn to Logan. On Logan's turn, he plays a Flooded Strand, and passes turn to Dax. Daxon casts his commander, Glarb, and then passes turn to James. James moves into combat and attacks Malcolm to Rob and Logan with the Ragavan. He nets 3 treasures and exiles a Necromancy off of Logan. Second main, James casts Spyglass Siren, gets a map, cracks the map, targets Malcolm, and reveals a Deflecting Swat, which gets Malcolm a +1/+1 counter. We pass to Rob. Rob plays Ancient Tomb, taps Jhoira, puts in a Corridor Monitor, ETB targets Jhoira, activates Jhoira again, and puts in a Repurposing Bay. Sacrifices Corridor Monitor to put in a Sculpting Steel into play, which targets the Soul Ring. On Rob's end step, Logan cracks Flood Strand for an Underground Sea, then casts Mystical Tutor also on Rob's end step, and tutors up a Intuition. Move on to Logan's turn. He shocks in a Watery Grave, and then passes turn to Daxon. Daxon activates Glarb, surveils, and bins a Culling of the Weak, plays a Scalding Tarn, cracks it up for a Breeding Pool, casts Dark Ritual into a Seedborn Muse, and then Delighted Halfling. Passes turn to James. James casts Lively Dirge. Logan responds back with a Flusterstorm. Then James moves into combat, sending 1 creature to each of his opponents. Rob activates Trickster Mage, discarding a Whir of Invention. Untaps Jhoira. James nets 4 treasures and a Necropotence off of Logan. He casts said Necropotence and pays 10 life. Rob activates Jhoira, copying Seedborn Muse. Daxon responds with a Chord of Calling, tutoring in a Valley Floodcaller. We move on to James' end step and exiles these cards. On Rob's turn, he plays Lion's Eye Diamond, activates Repurposing Bay, pitching the Seedborn Muse to get Coveted Jewel. With Coveted Jewel's ETB, Daxon responds by activating Glarb. Daxon bins a Clever Impersonator and an Enduring Vitality, then casts Finale of Devastation, triggers Valley Floodcaller, which will untap Glarb, and then puts a Kitsa into play. Rob plays Seat of Sidnod, then casts Paradoxical Outcome, targets all his non-land permanents but Jhoira. Daxon responds with Glarb. He bins a Chain of Vapor and a Marsh Flats. Rob responds with the Trickster Mage activation, pitching Brainstorm to untap Coveted Jewel. James responds with a Deflecting Swat, targeting Paradoxical Outcome. James changes the targets of Paradoxical Outcome to all his permanents minus Coveted Jewel. Rob draws, plays Mox Opal, then Mox Diamond, then casts Copy Artifact, choosing Coveted Jewel. ETB in response, Daxon casts Reverent Silence, triggers Valley Floodcaller, and Rob activates Coveted Jewel copy artifact in response and gets 3 blue mana. Also in response, James activates Necropotence for 6 more. Then Daxton activates Glarb, binning a Ancient Tomb and a Lotus Petal. Reverent Silence resolves and destroys all enchantments. Rob recasts Sculpting Steel, targeting Coveted Jewel, draws 3 more cards. Rob activates the Sculpting Jewel, gets 3 more blue, recasts Trickster Mage, then casts Crimson Wisps, targeting Trickster Mage to draw a card and give it haste. Untaps Coveted Jewel, then targets Trickster Mage with Cerulean Wisps, untapping it and drawing a card. James responds back with a Mental Misstep. Rob responds back with a Force of Will, pitching a Mystic Remora. To untap the Coveted Jewel, he taps the Coveted Jewel, makes 3 red, activates Arena of Glory, putting back Jhoira into play, activates Jhoira, and puts a Defense Grid into play. Casts a Transmute Artifact, sacrificing the copied Coveted Jewel to put in a Memory Jar. Rob cracks Memory Jar. In response, cracks LED, and then Logan responds with a Silence, paying for the Defense Grid. Rob activates Sensei's Divining Top, finds a Final Fortune on top, draws it, and casts it for his final turn. Memory Jar resolves, everyone draws 7, and then discards at end step. We move on to Rob's final turn. He draws a card, doesn't find anything, and just packs it up. Also on Rob's end step, Daxton activates Glarb and surveils into his graveyard a Windswept Heath and Arcane Signet. On Logan's turn, he plays Otawara and then casts his commander, Master of Keys. On Logan's end step, Daxton activates Glarb, bins a Notion Thief, and keeps 1 card on top. On Daxton's turn, he plays a Boseiju and then casts Wishclaw Talisman, passes it to Logan, activates Glarb, bins a 6 and a Emergent Zone. On upkeep, Daxton casts Culling Ritual. In response, Logan casts Intuition. In response to Intuition, Daxton activates Glarb, bins a Soul Ring and a Necropotence. With Intuition, Logan gets Abdel, Animate Dead, and Tiny Bones joins up. Abdel gets sent to Logan's hand, and James responds back with a Pact of Negation targeting Culling Ritual. James casts Gamble, discards a Brain Freeze, then proceeds to cast Underworld Breach. Daxton responds by activating Kitsa, drawing and discarding a Bolus of Citadel. James plays Underground Sea, moves into combat, attacks Logan with Ragavan and Spyglass, and Malcolm at Daxton. He casts Soul Ring, then he casts Vampiric Tutor, then recasts Brain Freeze from the graveyard with Underworld Breach, and mills a Lion's Eye Diamond, among other cards. With Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze, and Lion's Eye Diamond, James has access to his entire deck in his graveyard, milling out himself, and then casting Thassa's Oracle. Good job, James. Good job to you again, James. Truthfully, seeing how the game played out and progressed, I honestly wouldn't have guessed you pulled it off there at the end. Good job again to you. Now moving on to our endgame summation. Rob, you could have copied Seedborn Muse a turn sooner at Daxton's end step after he casted it. You could have did what you did afterwards, untap your commander and put in that Phyrexian Metamorph, and then maybe get more artifact activations there. Decks that Reverent Silence did destroy a few enchantments or artifact enchantments, kind of assist and did get rid of James's Necropotence, but at that point they weren't pivotal pieces, and Rob got to use the Coveted Jewel anyways. The ETB and the tap couldn't have been stopped. A little more for you, just maximizing your Otter's ability, Valley Flood Caller, having him untap using your commander to its full ability. With every spell you cast, you should be tapping and untapping, using it as much as you can. Here, on your turn, you actually had an opportunity to win. I'm not 100% sure if it's in your deck, but if you do have a Retraction Helix or a Banishing Knack, this is the opportunity for you to tutor that up, cast it onto one of your Bloomburrow creatures, ones that can preferably untap, cast Retraction Helix, you target your Valley Flood Caller, bounce your Wish Claw back to your hand, then tutor up another 0 rock. Doesn't have to be anything that nets you mana positive, but it could be, and then you can go through lines there, milling your deck and maybe potentially casting something else down the line there. Or you could just keep casting a 0 rock and bouncing it to your hand and repeating that process. Every time you do that, your 3 creatures will get bigger and bigger and bigger until you have lethal on the board. Send 2 guys at Logan and 1 at James. They didn't have any blockers at that point, so you would have had a potential win there as well. Logan here on James's win attempt. I'm not sure why the priority jumped to you. I know it's a spell that's gonna clean the board, but obviously you should give priority to the person who is probably most likely to deal with it. If he doesn't, then he's in a worse off position than you. His turn is not set up, he loses a decent amount of creatures and some of his mana sources. Just holding that intuition back, maybe you could have used it to interact with that and force Daxon to give you a counter spell that will assist and put something in your graveyard that you don't need that will help you with your combo. Maybe Abdel into the graveyard and then a Fierce Guardianship since you have your commander on board, and anything else that would assist your combo line there. Overall, good job to everyone. Thank you again for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Join me on my other social medias. You can share those too. Just trying to grow the popularity of the channel here. And if you want to help me grow even more and be popular like these guys that are on screen, these oh so popular patrons, starting off with our content consumers, our tier 2 Patreons: Big Yoda, Marcus, Dylan, Troy, Rodrigo, and Gwendolyn. Moving on to our cardboard cutouts, tier 3, Wong, Matt Albert, and Joyner. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed the content, please head to patreon.com/cardboardcontent. See you in the final round for more content.